All right, we're going to get started here. Welcome, everybody. Small group here, but I'm sure we're all passionate about composting. So, my name is Joshua. I'm the community programs educator here at Wenatchee River Institute. And so my role is to put together speakers and Red Barn events like this. And then we also have lots of programming like our snowshoe program. We have lots of workshops that are coming up. And then we also do a lot of youth programming here at WRI. Our mission is to connect people, communities, and the natural world. And this is a great example of doing that here, where this composting program connects us as a community so that we can be doing better for this environment. We have a couple of volunteers with us. One is Jeremy here on the tech, helping to bring this video to those that are watching online, streaming. This is also going to be available later to watch on YouTube. All of our videos are on there, so if you missed some, and we've had some great speakers come through, take a look at what's on there. And then we have Lissy, who's over here helping us sell some drinks. So if you didn't buy any drinks, that always supports us, WRI. So we also take this time to read our land acknowledgement, and that's something that we've worked hard with the Wenatchee Advisory Group, and so it's really important for us to read these at the start of all of our programs. This land acknowledgement was created alongside the Shimpasquatchie people. We're spreading the message they wish to spread to the public. The land Wenatchee River Institute sits on is the ancestral homelands of the Shimpasquatchie, Pasquosa, or Wenatchee people. The Shimpasquatchie, meaning people in between, had villages positioned along the Wenatchee River and surrounding areas. Their ancestral homeland extends from the Cascade Ridge through what is now known as the Wenatchee and Okanagan Valleys. The culture and economy of the Shimpasquatchie people centers on taking care of the land. They fish, hunt, gather roots and berries, basket-making materials, and medicines. The Shimpasquatchie are named within the Yakima Treaty of 1855. Language to establish the Wenatchee Reservation was never followed through, even with the needed surveying completed. Many Shimpasquatchie now live on the Colville Reservation, 150 miles northeast of Leavenworth. They were forced off their land here, and the U.S. government moved them to this reservation. The Shimpasquatchie people are still alive today. They continue to practice their culture, harvest their traditional foods and medicines, and hold their ceremonies passed down from their ancestors. Most people won't see or notice them, but they continue to be on the land they're connected to. Their traditional language is in Hopchin, an interior Salish dialect, and I'd like to welcome you all by saying hello in their language, Tilhusht. Tilhusht. We offer this land acknowledgement as the first step to amplifying Indigenous voices and recognizing the harm done to them as a people. We stand as an ally to recognize their connection to the land and their rights to practice their culture on these sacred lands. We encourage all to learn about the Indigenous people of the place you call home. The Wenatchee River Institute is committed to sharing this land acknowledgement and following up with other actions to educate and be respectful. All right. I would also like to thank our sponsors. It's because of the sponsors and donors that we are able to reach so many people in the Wenatchee Valley in such diverse ways. So I would like to thank South, North Central Audubon Society, Munchen House, Mitchell Reed and Schmidt and Stearns, Sage Natural Foods Market, the City of Leavenworth, Icicle Brewing Company, Rhine House, Gustav Leavenworth, Rimmerroder Construction, Riverfront Rock Gym, Sleeping Lady, Obertal Inn, Chocolat, Tierra Learning Center, Barron House, and the Cove at Fish Lake. All right, now for Winton. Winton Manufacturing Compost Works was rebuilt by repurposing the decommissioned Winton sawmill near Coles Corner, about 50 minutes north of Leavenworth. The project took about 3 years to become operational from concept to completion, which included permitting, construction, and testing. Winton Manufacturing can receive annually up to 62,000 tons of yard debris, wood waste, food waste, and other organic streams. And these materials are turned into high-quality compost for multiple area markets. And Robette, who is the sales, marketing, and outreach manager, is going to be speaking today. She's been with them since the beginning of it, about 2 years ago, and she is passionate about composting. So let's welcome Robette up here.
Well, thank you guys for coming. I know we're a small group, but sometimes a small group is a good group, which it always is. As Joshua said, I have been with Winton for about 2 years. In that time, I've been able to kind of direct what composting and commercial composting can look like for our valley, which has been a lot of fun. So today we're going to be talking about composting in our community, and I just love this picture. This picture was a brand new composter that came down. She'd already collected her compost. She hadn't got her bucket, and so it's in the wrong kind of bag, but she was like, oh, you got to take a picture. I love this program. So it's one of my favorite because it does just indicate the passion behind some of our early composters and just the love that composting can give to our environment and where we live here. So talking about composting, we have generally, before we had Winton in a commercial compost system, we had our traditional linear system, which sent all of our organics to our landfill. And so when we think of an organic or a linear system, it goes in and it stops at the end, right? It's buried in the landfill. It's mixed with inert objects that can't compost. It breaks down and creates methane and CO2. And then that just the organic waste alone that's sent to our landfills accounts for 8% of all the greenhouse gas emissions that is currently being emitted yearly. So it's not a very efficient system. We lose a resource into something that just dies there. So with commercial composting or even some backyard composting, if you can do that, we're able to create a circular system where that waste that's organic is no longer treated as a waste, but it's now a resource, and it goes through a system, and it can always be input and continued into that circular system. So once something that gets put into the compost, it gets brought up to Winton, we put it into our heaps or our rows, and we use an in-vessel technology, and in 30 days those compostable wastes are now to compost. It allows us to apply that compost to our landscapes where it can continue with the help of plants that grow in that compost to sequester CO2 from our atmosphere, thus reducing even more of those greenhouse gases that we see just in the linear system. It also helps strengthen our local food systems and feeds our communities. By using compost, we grow a more vigorous plant and vegetable source so that disease and pests are reduced with a better soil microbiome. And then once it gets to our table and we eat it, it can go, and what we don't eat can go back into the compost. So it's always can be recycled in the system. And we each have a chance to do that. So during this talk, we're going to focus, of course, on this part, because who wants to talk about the bad things of the linear? Let's talk about the circular. So we're going to go through 3 main parts. We're going to start with the basics of how to compost, how to commercially compost in different programs we have in the Valley. And then we're going to go into what's happened over the last 2 years as we've composted at Winton. And then the last part of the talk is going to talk about a little bit about synergies and what we can do as a community to build this program to get it to go quicker, faster, get more people into that circle to compost. So starting with the basics, what goes into our compost bin? So of course, any food item can go into our compost bin. This is a little different than your backyard compost because we can compost shells and bones and dairy and meats and cheeses, things that you wouldn't often put into your backyard compost. So pretty much if it's food, it can be composted. If it's moldy food, we can compost it. It doesn't matter what it looks like, we can make it into compost. Also in our compost buckets, we can include food soiled paper, so paper bags, towels, napkins, sugar packets, newspapers, greasy pizza boxes, and the takeout greasy pizza boxes, not the ones you get from Safeway, because those have a coating, but just your regular takeout, coffee grounds and filters, and then uncoated paper plates and napkins. So as long as it doesn't look shiny or feel shiny, it can go into your bucket or into the compost waste, the food waste. At Winton, we do accept approved compostable packaging. And we have to be very careful as we accept this. It has to meet a CMA standard, which means that it's been tested in a composting facility like ours. There's a lot of packaging out there that is commercially composted, but might not break down in our system. So there's a good website to go to, and you can search different packaging manufacturers and different items to see if you can put it into your compostable stream for Winton.
What's the website?
It's the CMA website, and I had it so it popped up and we can look at it, but it didn't work. But it's CMA, and we're an in-vessel composter because there's different kinds of composting and different packaging works in different systems. But yeah, this will be after, it'll be online, so we can have a link on there for the website for you to search your packaging. So we know what we can put in there, and over the last year, we've discovered not only what we can't put in there, but what we need to watch out for. One of our bigger culprits that we find into the compost waste stream is fruit and veg stickers. So what I tell people to do is if you go grocery shopping, you come home with your items, take it off of them before you put it in your fridge, and then you don't have to worry about it. The ones I see it the most on are the rinds that we can't eat. So like your bananas, your avocados, your oranges and lemons, those are the ones that I often find the things on. Because usually when we eat our apples and our pears, we peel those off because nobody wants to eat it, and we don't want to compost them. So they are plastic. We did have some butter wrappers come in early. I think it's because people thought, well, it's, butter's in the inside, so the paper is compostable. Well, it's not. It is actually plastic. Parchment paper doesn't break down in our system, so it can't go into your bin. The cartons, whether it has hash browns or milk, those are both considered garbage. They can't be recycled and they can't be composted because they're also lined with plastic. One of the standout ones that we also saw was that not all egg cartons are created equal. So egg cartons can be composted, but depending on the brand you buy, it might have a paper top like this one does, and that black part can be recycled, but it can't be composted. So really when you're thinking about putting your egg carton into your compostable waste stream, you just want it to be the pulpy part. So there's some other ones that we can buy locally that it's all the pulpy carton, but then they put a sticker on it. And of course the sticker is not compostable. So either remove your sticker or remove the top portion where the sticker is, and then the rest can be composted. And of course the obvious ones, no plastic, no metals, no glass, and no liquids. So we have two different waste streams in the valley. We have a food and compostable waste stream, and then we have a yard waste stream, and they're separate. So as we go through this talk, you'll see that they're separate, and then when we bring them to the facility, that's when we bring them together, and that's how we make it into our grinder properly. We can take grass. A lot of the other transfer stations or drop-off sites for yard waste don't take grass. We can take any kind of pine needle, pine cones. That's the biggest question again. We live in a forested area with a lot of pine trees and fir trees. Yes, we can take those pine needles. And then just your standard garden debris, so flower cuttings, all the regular stuff. So when we launched this program, we really wanted to do it in the most environmentally inclusive way. And I am a former fish biologist, and we live in an area that also has bears. So as we launched it, we worked with WSD, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, to develop a bear-wise program for composting so that composting wasn't attracting bears to our bins. So we put out bear-resistant bins that are certified by the IGBC. And if you ever want to watch a cool video, search for IGBC and you'll see the grizzly bears in Yellowstone try to get these bins apart after they've been baited. So ours have been certified. We've also enclosed our entire composting area with electrified fence so that we're not habituating the bears to our facility or habituating them to our compost collection sites. So we have a couple programs when it comes to composting. One of the first ones that we have 2 food waste composting systems, and one of them is our community composting program. And this one, you sign up, you get a bucket, and you collect those items I just told you about in your bucket, and then we pick those things up from drop-off sites. To sign up for the program, you go onto our website, and it costs $60 if you sign up for the year, or $5 a month if you sign up monthly. You also pay for the bucket, and you get some bags depending on which one you signed up for, and you pay for those. And then we have a series of different drop-off sites located within the community. When we first started, we only had one, which was the recycling center. Since then, we've built up 7. In the Upper Valley and Plain, we have Winton, the Grunwald Guild, and the Plain Pantry. And then in Leavenworth, we have the Recycling Center, Leavenworth City Hall, Sage Market, and those are the 3 in Leavenworth. And then in Peshastin, our lowest valley drop-off site is at Alpine Fitness right downtown. So anybody that's enrolled in the program, we ask them to fill their buckets weekly or use it to collect their weekly waste, and then weekly drop that off. What happens when we collect longer than a week, our food waste in our bucket starts to go anaerobic and it gets kind of smelly. So, and it also gets really gross. We can still make that into compost, but it does tend to offset other people from joining when it really smells bad. And composting doesn't have to smell bad. After 10 days, it's no longer considered compostable. So it's really important is if you sign up and you select one of your drop-off sites that you deliver your materials weekly. When we also set this up, I tried to partner with nonprofits. They're either food redistribution sites or other nonprofits to offset their costs. So when you sign up for the program and you select, say, the Plain Pantry, they're able to compost at their redistribution center, and then by you helping and using that site, it allows them to compost for free. So picking your site helps to determine, helps offset the cost of that place. So I'm happy to announce tonight that after some zoning conversations with the city of Leavenworth, where I worked with the Planning Commission, we have adjusted our zone code so that we can do community composting outside of the commercial zone. So WRI is our first outside the commercial zone, and by signing up with WRI, you will be helping them to compost here at their site and offset their cost. We are working with some other places that we are going to put out the community drop-off containers. The Osborne School has been rezoned, so that could be a site for Leavenworth. And then as we work down Valley and working with a couple of different nonprofits and community groups in Kashmir, and then Sustainable NCW for Wenatchee and East Wenatchee drop-offs. We do have people participating from all over the county, and our farthest is in East Wenatchee. So I think down Valley we have about 12 community composters that would like a more accessible drop-off location. So the other way to get food and compostables into the compost stream is by being a commercial composter. So in town, I work with businesses, and in the valley, I work with businesses to train them of how to compost. We try to empower their employees and design a collection system that works for them individually, depending on the business type. What we found, or what I found, is that finding somebody within that business that is a cheerleader and an advocate is going to drive that business to compost well and efficiently. The other big selling point for commercial composting, besides just the general environmental one, is that on average, using our composting service, it's about a 10% reduction in their landfill. So as a business owner, you will be offsetting your costs by composting and reducing some of your waste stream. So because our two different waste streams for composting are separated, or we have our food waste and our yard waste, they're still separated in how we collect them. So for yard waste, if you're in the apple maggot quarantine zone, which is Safeway West, you have to contain that material, all that yard waste in there. So in town, we can drop off at the Leavenworth Recycling Center. It is only open to city residents, so you must be in town. For people outside of that area, you can use the Chelan County drop-off site at Icicle, or you can bring it up to us at Winton. If you're in the pest-free zone, which is the east side of the quarantine, you can use the Dryden Transfer Station or Stamilt. And I threw up some numbers just to show you what the costs are for using those as a drop-off site. So I get really excited, and this can go into really a lot of depth with the basics, but the best thing I can say is to learn about the composting process. The best thing is to come up and take a tour. But basically, those two waste streams come into our facility, the food waste and the yard waste. We grind them with a very large grinder, and then at this point, we no longer are a hauler of compostables. We're a microbe farmer. So in order to get compost, or the compostables to break down, we need microbes, and those are naturally occurring on our food and our yard waste already. And in order to do that, we provide them with oxygen, we provide them with the food, which is what they use to grow, and they break that down as a byproduct. And then we give them water, just like everybody. We need oxygen, air, and water. We also provide them with a structure, which is the gore cover, so it enables us to control their environment to give them the best growth available. So we can control their oxygen levels, and this will drive how they're breaking it down and how quickly they're breaking it down. And some of the things that we find as our little worker bees are different kinds of fungi and bacteria and Actinomycetes. The piles do heat up because as we do work, what they're expelling is heat. So if you sit on a pile, which is what I do with the kids when they come to visit, and especially in the winter when it's already cold, you can sit on the pile and it's nice and warm because it's about 150 degrees. But they're very large piles. I wish I had a person, but that's about a 3-foot cone, that orange thing, and that's about 950 yards of compostable material in each row. But come take a tour because it's way more exciting to see it in person. And so after 30 days of that process, we test that material to make sure it's past the PFRP, which just means it's a pathogen reduction. And we send it off to get it tested, and we get all the really interesting things as gardeners we want to know, which is like the NPK, all different parts of what that compost looks like. Once it's past that test, we use a turner, and then we age it for a period from 30 days onward, depending on where we are in our production. And then the final exciting thing, and this thing is huge, this is our screener, and that's where it's removing plastics and contamination. This is a vacuum system. And then it's sorting it into different size groups. And then those size groups, just like the circle of compost of how we can get it into the stream, those go back into the system for the next one. So it's an endless as we collect it, and it's endless here at the site. Once again, it's way funner to watch it in person. So our finished compost can be delivered locally, regionally. I think the farthest we've gone is last year was Rock Island and Cle Elum. And then we also have a retail yard, so you can come and get some compost. As a community composter or as a commercial composter, you get 10% off so that you're part of the circle. And then down valley, you can buy it at Bob's Apple Barrel. Part of our mission too has been a lot of community outreach. This happens to be the garden at Beaver Valley where we donated compost. And here's a group of kids actually watching that screening process. So we do a lot of tours, I do a lot of farmers markets, and I try to get in touch with as many people as I can. So the exciting part is now that we kind of know the basics of how composting works, and it's kind of, I'm sorry, not as exciting to everybody, but I think it's exciting. We get into what happened in our first year. So in 2022, we launched the program. We actually started our commercial routes with the school district, and they actually brought their material to us because we didn't have our truck running there yet. So for the first two months of their school, they actually would haul it to us. And then J&J Meats came on in Kashmir, and we started a route. Within that time, we also launched our community composters with our one site at the Leavenworth Recycling Center. And I think it was a month and a half that it was going, and we had 47 people sign up. At the end of 2022, we were able to add a few more commercial composters. Muchin came on, Yodelin, and Mana. So we had 5 composters to get started, which is very small, but very exciting. So once that material, we started our route, we start to look at where did the compostables come from? And because we only had 5 customers, we ended up buying material from the west side, and we bought 2,800 tons of mixed food and yard waste that was already ground, just to get our rows started. And this was our first time doing this process through the winter. So we didn't even know how that would look. Were things gonna freeze? And so it was a learning curve for us. And with that, we've been able to adapt some of our technology. But we did bring in some from outside of here. For that small period of time from August to December when we were going, we collected 44 tons locally. So those were from the commercial composters, and those were from those community composters. And then we had already started collecting yard waste locally. So about 426 tons was dropped off at Winton. The city of Leavenworth, with their recycling center program and their spring and fall pickups, they brought us 88 tons. And then Chelan County had a historic pile because of the apple maggot quarantine. So they ended up bringing us 560. So in that first year, we brought in almost 4,000 tons of material to be made into compost. And if you convert that to pounds, it's about 7.9 million pounds. Most of us kind of know pounds a little better. But this is, even at 4,000 tons, we are permitted to do 62,000 tons. So 4,000 tons is a small drop in the bucket. In Chelan County, the last time the Department of Ecology did a waste study, they found that 25,000 tons of organic material, compostable material, was going to landfill. So I would guess that if there's 25,000 available, and we only brought in 4,000, that's probably our goal, is where we're gonna get to first, is that 25,000. So it's still very small if you look at that bigger picture. So with that almost 4,000 tons of compostables, we made about 4,000 tons of yard waste, which equates to for every ton of compostables we brought in, we almost made 1 yard. So it was almost a 1-to-1 ratio. By composting that material, we did not create, this is weird to say, we did not create 188 metric tons of methane. So that's what would have been produced if this material had made it to the landfill. So where did that compost go after we made it? So there was 4,000 yards available. As you can see, most of it went to our local homeowners in the area. 1,300 yards of it went locally. We did have 60 yards go to farms. So Infuse Organics bought some of our material. Maverick spread some of theirs on their farm. And Nicholson Orchard on Blewett Pass. So some of that fruit and vegetable you might have bought last summer could have had our compost on it. And if you were an early adopter of the community composter, you helped get them compost. We also donated 10 yards. 8 yards came here to the E. Lorraine Community Garden. And then 1 yard went to the Plain Community Garden and another yard went to Beaver Valley. Local landscapers also used it. This could have been at hotels. It could have just been our local landscapers. And then regional projects. Some of our compost is now at the roundabout in Wenatchee and in other bigger projects down valley. The remainder of it, we used it to make other soil products. We use compost in our topsoil, our garden soil, our potting soil. So some of it did get used to make other products. 2022 was a big outreach year because we weren't quite started. I did a lot of outreach at the farmers markets. We had this is a picture of a regional tour with city and county officials that came to see our process. And then we did some great community, this is the Plain Gardeners group that came out and did a tour to see, and they brought some compost home. But we were in a lot of places a lot of the time. And then we started to get some press. There was an article about food waste and climate change, and these are both in the Wenatchee World. This one was by the Lake Wenatchee Fire and Rescue because there's a connection between our Firewise program and composting as well. So moving on to 2023, we made it through 2022 and we're still going. So 2023, we built up our community composters from 47 to 211. We advanced how many drop-off sites are available in the community. So now there are, at this time, I think there were 4. And then our commercial composters started to come online. So we had hotels starting to come online. We had Stevens came online for their bike period. And then we started to move down valley as well. We supported Apple Blossom last year, so they were composting. And then Confluence Health, the hospital came online down valley. The hospital here was on valley. So we started to kind of stretch our routes and our reach out. And we had a variety of different kinds of businesses coming. So at the end of 2023, we had 20, which is better than 5. And during that period, for food waste and the compostable and compostables, we brought in about 378 tons. So that 200 from the roll-off service, that alone, this number, that's Icicle Brewing right out here. So that's all their beer mash. So in our commercial and our community composters, 178, but almost 400 tons came in for food waste. And then our numbers for yard waste changed a little bit. We had about the same for drop-off at Winton. The city of Leavenworth had a historical pile they needed to get rid of, so it went up. But all in all, and then Chelan County brought a little too. But all in all, during 2023, we collected just over 1,000 tons. And this was all local, so no material was brought in from outside. So with 1,000 tons of compostables, we made 1,500 yards of compost. We increased our conversion from 1 ton of compostable waste to 1.4 yards of compost made. So we got a little bit more efficient with our screening methods and our removal of contamination, and our contamination went down by a lot. Once again, saying this is weird. So by sending it into the compost, we did not create 47 metric tons of methane. So moving into 2023, and where did it go? Well, a lot of that 1,500 yards of compost that got made in 2023 is still available because it's actually sold the next year. Just yesterday, we finished up delivering 400 yards to Big Dog Farms, which you guys can find at the local farmers markets as one of our farmers. She got a Washington Department of Agriculture grants to purchase compost, so a matching grant. So all of her flowers this upcoming year and vegetables will have a little bit of Winton compost in there, and a little bit of the community compost since it came from you guys. So we only have about 1,500 yards, and if you looked at that 2022, there is a big demand in this area for compost. We were able to sell 4,000 yards of compost, and that's growing as we build the customer base. So we really need to build our compostable customer base and our commercial and our community composters so that we can have enough compost for this region. So coming into this year, we might end up having to broker compost from another facility that's like ours. But unfortunately, we start to get away from our story, which is compost made locally and distributed regionally. 2023 was also a fun, exciting outreach year. Here we are at the Apple Blossom. So we did composting down there. These are 2 community composters. They're actually from East Wenatchee. We did a lot of tabling events at different functions. We were at the Rotary Conference. We also participated in Salmon Fest, and we came up with this really cool experiment showing that by using compost, we can better filter our water for fish. And then we worked with the fire department up at Lake Wenatchee to reduce fire-wise fuels. They had a grant so people could participate on that day and bring their yard waste and their fire reduction waste to us for free. And we'll continue to develop these kinds of partnerships in the future. The fire departments all up and down the valley have applied for that grant again. And we'll be at Apple Blossom again with more days. The first time we did it, we were there for only Youth Day. This year, we're going to be there throughout the whole festival.
And you should say about the award.
Oh, and then we won, thanks Lizzie. We won an award. We were part of an award that was won for being the greenest festival in Washington, beating out Seafair and some of the large ones. So, and we only, during this, and this was really part of the Rotary, the Confluence Rotary really adopted this and they ran with it and organized it. So I'd like to thank them for doing that and then progressing into this year as well. So we started to get a lot more press this year, which is helpful because a lot of people still don't know that we are here. We saw some of it with the Apple Blossom and in that award. This is when the hospital came online. And if you guys haven't searched for Winton or composting in all of our different media, search for them. There's some really great articles. And it really shows the involvement and excitement that some of these people that are participating have for the program. We also started some organized events by Winton. This year was our first Pumpkin Smash event. We held it down at Osborne. I'd like to thank Tierra Village for providing these awesome mallets that we all got to use to smash the pumpkins, and it was to benefit the specially abled community. So we are hoping to grow this into next year and have this be a reoccurring event and maybe get it participation down valley as well, maybe with the YMCA. But pumpkins during Halloween is one of the largest organics that's sent to our landfill. So we had people reach out to us, but they weren't part of the program, and the only way to compost them was with us. So we're hoping that grows next year. We also organized, we just didn't get to pull it off because it was -16, a tree cycling event. And the Boy Scouts, it's a little cold for Boy Scouts to be helping load a container. But we had people participate when nobody was there. So we had about 10 trees that were left in the parking lot. So there is a need to have a tree recycling event. And so we hope to grow that one with that organization as a future. And with Kashmir, we tried to do one there with the FFA. So we really like to partner with our community groups that benefit our youth and other organizations. So these kind of events occur in other places in the nation, and they're very successful. We also launched a program where participating businesses get a sticker on their window. So as you approach a business, some of the ones that we had listed earlier, they're displaying that they're involved with this program. This just happens to be a picture of one of our newest composters in Wenatchee, which is Garlini's. And that's the sticker. So look for the sticker, and you know you're supporting composting when you purchase food from them. So this is kind of where we make another step. So what does 2024 look like? Well, we're going to continue to grow our programs. We're going to continue to do all the outreach. We're going to continue to make compost, but we need a little help. And we need some synergy that's going to come from our community, and whether that be directly from our community, and it needs to be some synergy within our company too. We need to grow as a company. We need some support from our cities, our counties, and our state to continue this program. Because like I said, there's 25,000 tons currently being sent to landfill that could easily be composted. But we need people working together. So we'll continue to build those relationships, but it's hard sometimes to get everybody to the table, and we all have a voice. So starting with ourselves, what can we do in the future? We need to build more customers. We need to build more community composters. We need to continue those outreach events. We also need to hire more people. As we get more inbound and we're able to produce more compost, we need more people that are working for Winton. We also have a lot of work to do with our website. We can use some marketing to get our voice out there, and our sales software. When we launched our community compost program, we used JotForm, which works, but it's a little clunky and it's hard to go in and edit your account. And then in the future, as we get going, we need to purchase more equipment, and whether that be more hauling trucks, whether that be more service equipment and containers, we'll just have to see what that looks like. But as this program grows, we as a company are going to have to grow with it. And we look forward to that. From our community has a big voice. So we can direct social change by participating in our composting program. So if you have a neighbor that's questioning it or wants to know more, the more people that engage and become participants, then the more of our community that's doing it, and that voice gets carried forward. We can also support our commercial composters by visiting those businesses that are a part of the program. So visiting Munchen House and Yodelin, or any of the other or the ones that are down valley as well. Lamolo is a new one that came on. So there's some great businesses that are already supporting this idea. So if we can support them, it helps them. And it shows them that what they're doing is what we believe in as a community. We can also let our municipalities and our county officials know that you support it. I don't know when I talk to them that they know how many people do support it. So letting them know that this is something that's important to you guys is going to drive what they discuss in the future. For our city, we still need to initiate those conversations. We need to continue talking about composting and waste diversion. We need to adopt zoning and code changes, and Leavenworth is a prime example of how that can work. By them changing their coding and zoning to allow for community composting, the program was able to grow. Without that, the program wouldn't have grown, because one place with limited time doesn't work for everybody. And then I just read this great article from Vail, and they changed their city ordinance saying that everybody needs to compost commercial. And what they saw when they did that is they saw most people, they saw people start doing it, but they increased their compostable waste stream by like 100-fold in the first 3 months. So by changing our ordinances and saying, you know what, we do believe in this as a community, and as a city, we're gonna say, yes, let's all compost, we do see a big change in that waste stream, an increase. Countywide, we as a county need to adopt the new organics management law. So in 2022, the House Bill 1799 was made into a law. And in that law, it says that in 2024, which started January 1st here, that if you produced 8 yards of compostable waste, you were supposed to start a composting program. And then it staggered. The next year in 2025, if you did 4 yards of compostable waste, you were supposed to start a composting program. And then in 2026, if you produced 4 yards of solid waste, you were supposed to start composting. So basically what they were trying to do as the state was to reduce the amount of organics by 75% that is currently sent to the landfills in an effort to reduce methane production. What we saw with the county, and because I'm not quite sure why, but the county has applied for an exemption and they've gotten it. And so we need to let them know that we do believe in this, that by following that state law, that we can improve our environment, that compostable waste can be a resource for our area, that it is needed. Compost, we can sell the compost that we make here regionally, and people want it. So letting them know that we should be following that law is important. We need to support the growth of this program into the future, and that might look like a transfer station down valley, because as we increase the number of customers we have and the number of residents participating, it doesn't make economic sense to have to drive it all the way to Winton. So by locating an area where different haulers can use a drop-off system for organic waste, it makes it more efficient and economically viable for it to come up to Winton. And then we do need to embrace the economic growth, because as a composter, we are providing the county with growth. We're hiring more people. We're collecting taxes on composting. So letting them know that this green business can help and aid the county. So I'm not telling them what to do, but as a community, these are the kind of things we can talk about with the county. At the state level, there's an exciting new bill, Bill 2301. In the bill, we are moving away from, if it passes and becomes a law, we are going to move away from plastic, vegetable, and fruit stickers. Oh, huge, right? And in a valley that most of our resources and our economics come from is our fruit industry. So there's going to have to be a little bit of change there. It might be tough, as I've learned these last 2 years. Change isn't easy, but we can do it. So eliminating plastic fruit and veg stickers, so exciting. Hopefully it passes. So let them know you believe in this bill. It also standardizes the colors of our bins. So currently, as you drive around town, waste management bins are green. They're all green, whether it's a recycling bin, whether it's a trash bin, whether it's a cardboard bin. Same with the city of Leavenworth will have to adopt theirs as well. All of their bins are black. They usually put a blue sticker. It standardizes those bins so that only green and brown bins can be used for compostables. So we start to develop that muscle memory with a color coordination. Recyclables can only be blue, and then landfill will be black or gray. So this will help standardize it within the establishments, but then also with those haulers as you drive by. So that's pretty exciting. And this happens in Seattle, but it helps us as a business person or an employee. If I walk out to a bin and it's green and the other one's green and the recycling sticker's gone, which one's the recycling? And so we eliminate contamination from the recycling and the compostables with a visual cue of what goes in what. So yep, let everybody know if you believe in those things that you like House Bill 2301. And so that's kind of the synergy, and I'm hoping that as a community we can talk about those, because that's going to drive that composting, that circular composting to increase. So I'd like to especially thank our Winton crew, because you can't make compost by yourself. So we have quite a few people. We have 5 employees that make compost, pick up the compostables, help with education and outreach. So I'd like to thank them. We have John Beam, John Grew, Anthony Russell, Justine Pulse, and I think I got it. Oh, Dave Ingraham. I can't forget our driver. Honk at him if you see him. We call him Super Dave. And then I'd like to thank some of our, I'd like to thank especially the city of Leavenworth. They've been very supportive in helping us come up with how to move forward with the program in our town. The Wenatchee Confluence Rotary Club, they were instrumental and continue to be instrumental in some Lower Valley with Apple Blossom and some other outreach events. Wenatchee River Institute for doing a program after school. I think their farthest one is Malga, that you guys are actually composting with your after school program. So you're teaching the kids after school. I'd like to thank Sustainable NCW as they work with some down valley issues and getting us community composting and become a big voice down in that valley that we're not in Wenatchee, that we're not there all the time. Waste Loop, I'd like to thank. They were instrumental in getting this outreach out to the public in this area and continue to advocate for composting in our community. And then the USDA, because they provided a grant through the city of Leavenworth that helps offset some of the costs for Winton and also gives new businesses the ability to start a program with lower costs to get that structure going. And that was a long talk. I tried to do 45 minutes, but there's pretty exciting stuff. So with that, I can take any questions. Or start a discussion, or whatever you guys want to say.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you said that it'll save a business 10% if they bring composting in instead of just hauling everything to the landfill.
So I said that a commercial composter, so like Munchen House, they reduce the cost, their landfill cost, by composting instead. So the cost to compost is 10% lower. We still haul and pick it up for them. They don't haul it to us.
Right.
Yeah.
So then why don't more businesses do it?
Right. So why aren't the schools doing it? Why isn't...
So the schools, some of the schools are. I just reached out to some Lower Valley schools in Wenatchee. I haven't heard back from all of them, but I have started a conversation down there. Schools are limited by budgetary restrictions, so it gets a little bit more confusing. I can't quite figure out why more restaurants and businesses don't. I think it's the idea that we have to change. That one thing I hear is, oh, it's going to be too hard for my employees. Or I hear, well, the only reason we're doing it is for the planet, is one I've heard. I think there's a disconnect between a business owner and any person in that top when you're just looking at budget issues versus what you gain from doing it. So even though I don't know, it's weird. I can't figure it out. I don't know why more people aren't jumping on. I've even offered to go pick up their compost for 3 months for free. And I get back, well, we send it to our chickens. And I said, well, what about the scrapings off the plates? And so I don't know. I mean, 3 months free. Here's some bins. Here's some bags. And I don't know why they're not signing up. And I don't know. The ones that are successful is because there's a cheerleader or an advocate. There's somebody that works there that believes in it. So I try to talk to the kitchen because hopefully they can talk to the owners. But we even have some here in town that offer like compostable packaging, and you think, oh yeah, they're totally a green business and they don't compost. And I talk to them and they're like, oh yeah. And I have to follow up constantly. And I've only had one business reach out to me, and that was McGlynn's. I was so excited. I got the phone call. She's like, I want to compost. And I was like, finally, somebody called me. So I'm not quite sure. It's hard.
Well, I remember back in the day when we were bringing recycling to Leavenworth, the problem was pickup. restaurants, it didn't alleys, they couldn't get their trucks in there. So is that an issue you're having?
We pick up in the alley. So Moochin House has 2 2-yarders, and so we collect about 8 yards of compostable waste a week from Moochin. Yodelin has 496 gallons, so we pick up 4 yards a week from Yodelin. So alleys aren't a problem.
Perhaps it's just the customers need to ask each restaurant, where does your food waste go?
Yeah, and I've tried to do, and the city of Leavenworth has done audits to look at waste streams to see who's producing. Waste Loop did an audit of some selected businesses, and most of those businesses are part of our program now. But yeah, I don't understand the disconnect either. I've tried different approaches. So that's why those ordinances work. Vail had the same problem. You know, they had a composter there and only a select few businesses did it. But as soon as they did the ordinance, now people took pride in what they did and everybody was composting. So I don't know if that's the answer. You would think we'd be able to project and to get it going on our own. But even with free service and all the things, I'm still getting no's. Yeah.
Have you reached out to the group coordinators? We're a huge premier wedding venue and a large conference community, and there's a lot of chefs at each conference venue, and there's a lot of big groups that come regularly, and that would be fantastic advertising too, because they come from all over.
And I see this need. Weddings want to be more sustainable. Caterers want to be more sustainable. The fest hall is going to start composting. So they have an event coordinator that we're working with. We're trying to figure out how to make that accessible for all the different types of events that go to the fest hall. So quinceañeras as well as local events. We did the Chelan Douglas Land Trust event we composted at. So part of it's that I have reached out to certain local, what is it? The one in Plain, the Spring Ranch. I forget. Mountain Springs. Thanks, Mountain Springs, and there's some other ones, the Brown Ranch, that do large wedding events, and it really depends on the event. But I think Justine put us on some of those wedding registers so that they know that we're here regionally if they wanted to do a compost at theirs. And then TR Village. So TR Village is now on board, so all of their events at the resorts are composting or have it available. Yeah.
You mentioned 2 organic farms that are using your compost. Do you do anything to monitor like herbicide residues that go into your compost? They can have pretty gnarly benefits for organic farming.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think they do organic practices because you have to be an OMRI certified farmer to be organic. There's some certification. But needless to say, when we do our testing, we do a vigor test when we send it off, they actually grow cucumbers and seedlings in the compost, and then they compare it to ones that don't have the compost. And then they look for indicators of herbicides. So in order for it to pass that test, it has to meet that vitality that it doesn't have herbicides. I don't believe there's a specific herbicide test. And if there is, it's probably really expensive, but because we use that STG, the standardized test that's adopted for composters, we do look at herbicides and pesticides. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have like a transparent number as far as like what restaurants would pay for composting versus just garbage?
So off the top of my head, so our containers, so like a 96-gallon container, the Bear containers are $64.90 for once a week pickup. And then I think for the city of Leavenworth, they just raised their rates and I can't remember their rates, but ours is underneath that. And so depending on where you are in the valley, those rates change. As you go down valley, you have more taxes applied to your landfill rates. So our cost might be a little bit higher, but because those taxes aren't applied, that's where you see the cost savings. So I don't know all the rates off my head, no. Yeah.
Do you work with any of the packing houses to get fruit from like Bluebird or?
Bluebird just brought in 30 tons today.
Because I've been to the Dryden transfer station when they dumped the dump truck full of pears in the dumpster, and I was curious if you guys could get any of that.
Yeah, so we aren't the only composter in town. Stemilt has been here since 2008 doing organics. So their feedstocks are pre-consumer, so that would be fruit and pear waste and all that, and then yard waste. They have some other permits too, but they can't take the type of food waste we take post-consumer and pre-consumer. They take only pre-consumer. So there's always been that avenue to get it there. And a lot of those packing houses do use it. Like Crunch Pack, last time I talked to them, they actually work with a feedlot. So when you look at the hierarchy of when things should be composted, we should first give away food to other people that need it. Then after that, we should feed animals with it, and then we should compost it, and then lastly, we should landfill it. But Bluebird did bring us 30 tons. They were shocked to know that we were here and didn't know last year when they had to bring 1,700 tons to landfill with cherries. But they're excited that we're here now. So we're working with them. We're also working with High Up. High Up sends part of their pear waste to us and part of it to Stemilt. The hard thing for some of these packing houses was you can't always send it to Stemilt depending on where they are. And then it's not always available for them to buy back. So a lot of these packing houses like High Up and Bluebird have their own orchards, and they get no benefit they get the benefit of sending it to a composter if it's available, but they don't get the benefit of being able to purchase that compost back and put it onto their orchards. So talking with Bluebird, they're really excited to be using us in High Up because now they can actually buy back that compost to apply it to their orchards, and that's never been available for them.
Huh.
Yeah.
Is there like a long-term dream of being able to like have Waste Management drive by our house and pick up our green container like they do in Seattle or other cities, Portland and stuff?
So commingling. Oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great if we could put our yard waste and our food waste in one bin, put it on the corner, and then somebody come pick it up? Yes. So if you live in East Wenatchee and Wenatchee, you can electively have a yard waste pickup. Because we're in the apple maggot quarantine, we don't have that available. And when Leavenworth worked with Waste Management to do the residential pickup in their contract, Waste Management said, we're not going to do it unless everybody does it. So I've opened up a conversation with the city, and I'll be at the city council meeting on February 13th talking about a commingled system for Leavenworth residents that's also bear resistant. So having a container that you can put your food waste, your wood waste, yard waste in, and it's bear resistant, and Winton will pick it up and we'll make it into compost, is kind of where I'd like to see it grow. And from what I've heard at community engagement nights, there's a lot of community members that would like it to be easy. When we have easy access to a system, we're more likely to participate. So if anybody wants to come to a fun council meeting and support a commingled, or if anybody is available for the next community engagement night at Leavenworth at the Fest Hall, which is
January 30th.
January 30th, Winton will be there tabling on commingling, and then we'll be presenting at council during one of their study sessions. But yes, in the Lower Valley, part of that law for 1799, if you met a population requirement, you have to have access to a commingled system as well. So the argument right now currently of why the hauling down there doesn't have a transfer station, and that's why they applied for an exemption, which would also influence that commingled system. So city ordinances, we can still do that and we can change that. So hopefully Leavenworth will continue to lead by example, and then more people will participate, and then hopefully the people that live next door to the person that's in county or into the city and they live in the county starts wanting that same service, and that's how we can drive that change. Yes.
Would there be, do you suspect there would be some sort of cost reduction on what consumers pay waste management for our garbage removal? Because it's a flat rate, and if someone else was taking a bunch of the, you know, landfill material out of it, would you like have to pay double essentially, or would the waste management bill go down, or like how does that usually work?
I don't know. I know on the west side, garbage, if you have your landfill service, it's a lot more expensive. I think like $125 a month. But those rates and prices are dictated by a couple of different things. One is the UTC. One is when the county, the cities do their contracting. So, and then it's working with waste management. I don't really know.
I would just say that, like, since I've been composting, I am going to, well, I can't because I have to have a bear-proof container, but I could downsize in my garbage. So it would end up costing me less.
Yeah.
But I'm stuck because I have to have bear-proof. But, yeah, so I think you could save money.
Yeah.
So I think what I've seen with our bear-resistant containers in the area, so like a couple years ago, you saw the news and the bears by Yodelin. Since Yodelin has started composting with us, we haven't seen any bears in that area. They've moved to other restaurants that aren't composting, that don't have a, you know, a bear-resistant container. But what I do, because I'm up valley, I wash my things before I put it in my trash. So if it had food residue on it and I can't recycle it, I wash it. So I don't have a bear can and I don't have a problem because all of my compostables is going into my bucket. But if you had a curbside commingled and it was a bear resistant can, you could potentially go to a very small trash can and reduce your cost. Yeah. Yeah, I rinse all my bits and I haven't had a problem. But you have to be diligent. You're a diligent one. You were one of our first composters.
Can I talk to the mayor yet about it?
Which one?
The mayor?
Our mayor?
All right.
Yeah, Carl Fleury is very, very supportive of composting. But, you know, in any government system, we have to work through it, right? So we have to work within how we can. So like with Leavenworth, it was changing the zoning and the codes. You know, the next step is ordinances. But yeah, I've presented with Carl. I've talked to him about our pumpkin smash event, and yeah, he's very supportive. And I've started to reach out to Lower Valley mayors, East Wenatchee. We have a meeting coming up with Jerry Lee Crawford. And then hopefully get in front of Mike Poirier for Wenatchee as well. But I do a lot of outreach in those areas too. And it's a continued conversation. And it's just me. So community, converse, let them know.
One quick question. You're looking at Kittitas as well?
So we did put in, it's so funny. So currently, in Leavenworth, we're in the quarantine zone. So the county applied for because really none of our food waste should be leaving the quarantine zone. It should all be here. But they applied for an exemption and they got it. And so currently our solid waste, which includes food waste, goes to Dryden. And they didn't have a Winton, right? So it's fine. And then it goes to landfill. We applied for that same exemption to bring in some material from Kittitas because they don't have a composting facility, and I don't know how much, but basically the county said, well, you need to re-examine your SEPA and do all these things. And so we'd love to be able to, our goal wasn't to service the west side, it's to service the east side, and Kittitas does have a need. And that's where some of our bigger colleges are, and they want to start composting and teaching their scholars, you know, and being more green. And so currently Kittitas we'd love to get them there, but we have to go through a lot of hoops to get there, and right now it's just not feasible. It's unfortunate. They'll probably end up sending their stuff to the west side, which, as long as it's composted. But it's a huge cost, so they probably won't. I don't know. Oh my gosh, yes.
I have a question on that. How expensive is it if you go buy compost at the facility?
So I think our compost is $36 a yard. And I think our organic is $42. And we haven't yet started making our organic, so we brought in some organic certified from another composter. And I think, I forget what, I think it's 1 yard equals 27 bags that you buy at Home Depot. So if you buy
It's like so cheap, yeah.
$36 is cheap for a yard of compost.
That's a good way to visualize it.
Because I think a bag of compost like Home Depot is probably $6 and it's 27 bags.
That's if you pick it up, and then you also.
36, and then we do deliveries too.
You do.
Oh, wow.
Is that mileage rate?
It's based on, we've kind of set it up for regional. So like a delivery to Leavenworth is $175 flat rate, and then it increases as you go down valley.
Cool.
And if you're a community composter or a business, you get 10% off of that. So it's only going to cost you $32 a yard.
Is there
Are you
more?
making money? Like, are you getting paid?
I do
Not you, but the company.
I do get
Like,
paid,
sustaining
and
yourself?
we have not. We are working towards covering our operations. At this point, we are very much invested in this and this facility and this community. So at this point, no, we're not making money. We're barely covering, but it's nice to have an investor that believes in it and sees, and we didn't expect to immediately come out the door and, meet all of our costs, but it's definitely been slower than we anticipated, especially with the, I don't know what it's not lack of support, but that synergy. There's not been that synergy that we thought would happen in this community that cares about the environment. And so hopefully one day, soonish, would be great. But because it allows us to grow as a company. And right now, I've been wearing so many hats, and I've hired 2 new employees. I just hired a junior service sales associate, Marissa. And then Justine Pulse does customer service and education and outreach. But we're all still having to wear a lot of health hats. So it'd be nice to cover our operations. That'd be cool. But it just shows that the investors are very invested, that they see, the growth potential. They would like it to be sooner, and might be questioning themselves, but yeah, we're here.
So
We're
maybe
going.
just get more stuff to your site, more material to compost.
How do we cover operations?
I mean, would that be like the biggest?
More commercial, that $17.99 that could have really helped us without the county support and the exemption being filed, it's just delaying the inevitable. And so what could happen is it could all happen at once, and that's going to overwhelm us as a company for growth, right? So I think if Leavenworth came on board completely, if we had a commingled system, then we start to cover those costs. And then as we go down valley, costs increase because we're hauling farther. So if we have a transfer station, but that would have to happen with county support, and there's not a lot of industrial land there that you can even develop into a transfer station. So there's a lot of working pieces. Yeah. One day.
Maybe the city will buy an orchard that's being sold to a subdivision or whatever, and then you can turn that.
Well, then they have to change the zoning because it has to be industrial, so it's not going to happen overnight.
So one thing, when you talked about the exemption requested by Douglas and Chelan counties, just to make the point that it's a temporary deferral.
Oh yeah, it is a temporary. So what that affected was the business organics management area map, which just said that they don't have to participate, and then they have to reapply for an exemption come June 1st when they look at that map again. So it is temporary. hopefully there's a little bit of change in some of the verbiage in that organics management law that allows Department of Ecology to deny an exemption, because as it sits now, if you apply, you get it. Yeah, so it is only temporary. We are showing Department of Ecology that we are willing to drive to Wenatchee to pick up compostables. So I think we're illustrating that it can work and it can happen, and that's all we can do. That's what we continue to do. We'll take 1 or 20, who cares?
One tip at a time.
Yeah, one tip at a time. One customer, it started with one community composter and it started with one commercial business, then that was the Cascade School District. So.
Did you say Stevens only does it in the summer?
No, they started with their bike park and they do their winter too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a roll-off up there, and they have a neat
That's awesome.
system where they actually sort it all themselves before they put it into the bins. The
That's
customers
awesome.
don't do it. Thank you guys